Yeah.
All right, thanks everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 5 o'clock. Thanks everyone for attending. Just a few points of order before we get started. Three of our board members are remote. Their locations were provided in the media release, so they will be able to participate and they will be able to vote. Hello. They're all in wonderful places, so. Um, we're going to go out of order a little bit on the agenda. We're going to switch some things up. There's some things that we need to vote on, and we do have two teachers here that we wanted to acknowledge as part of the personnel agenda. So for Jen, Charlie, and Austin, we're going to do the tax levy, the consent agenda, the personnel agenda, and policy review first, and then we're going to do public comments, and then we'll go into the capital project presentation. Um, so anyways, there's some method to the madness, but all right, just so everyone knows. With that, if we can stand for the pledge. All right, so first we're going to start with the tax levy resolutions, and we need to vote on each of these three. So I'm going to ask for a motion on all three of these on as a group. Bruce, do you want to speak to any of this?
Yeah, and it's really relatively simple. We're going to levy the same tax that we talked about at budget time. At budget time, you'll remember we talked about.
I hear it.
You'll remember we talked about a growing tax base. Looking at the assessment rolls, it looks like the tax base grew more than we had even expected. So I think that will be good news for our taxpayers. We'll see many folks who are very close to flat year over year, even though we saw the levy go up. The rest of it is really formality. There's legal language in there. There are a lot of numbers in there. Our tax rates are going down because of the growing tax base. And we just need to pass the resolution so that we can move along with the process.
I just want to emphasize a little bit that last sentence that he stated that looks like your taxes will most likely be flat. I think that's something that's really important based on that tax rate base growth factor that we've talked about. The more people are coming into the district, the more houses we have, the more that the taxes are distributed. So I think that is something that we need to celebrate and make sure that it's out there.
I think it's wonderful, and I personally will enjoy it. That's a resident. Any questions? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that brings us to consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Any comments or questions on anything on the consent agenda? No? Anything from the Netherlands, Greece, or Japan? All right. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Personnel agenda. Do I have a motion? We have to, yep. Any questions or comments on anything on the? All in favor? Aye.
I think we have Dr. Boyd. I know you're here, but we have two new teachers in the audience. Mary Boyce, you have to stand. We don't make you talk the first meeting. Dr. Boyd, any comments about Mary? Yeah, so congratulations, welcome.
Welcome.
And then Amy Salazar. Congratulations. We'll see you at new teacher orientation.
And then that brings us to policy review. I think we have 4 first reads and abolishing some policies. Do I have a motion? Any comments, questions on any of these? All in favor? Aye. All right. That brings us now back to the beginning. And we are going to do recognition of visitors. And then after that, we will do the presentation of the capital project and superintendent update. So as normal with recognition of visitors, you have 3 minutes. If anyone would like to speak, you can come to the podium and just introduce yourself. Sure. It can be on anything on the agenda, yes. And just so you know, you have 3 minutes, with about 15 seconds left. I'll just give you a subtle wave so you know. Okay.
Hi, my name is Susan Mora. I moved up here in 2001. I was a teacher in New York City for 34 years. And I'm very concerned about a artificial turf issue. Can I read some things that I read about? Okay. I know that there is a problem in general with PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They can enter the food supply through plants and animals grown, raised, or processed in contaminated areas. And there's a water contamination issue that I'm personally worried about. First and foremost, being an educator, a parent, a grandparent, I worry about kids being exposed to the artificial turf because it contains these forever chemicals, and they're called forever chemicals for a reason. They do not break down when they're released into the environment and continue over time to accumulate. They're dispersed through the air over long distances. They can cause reproductive issues. They're endocrine disruptors due to their ability to interfere with hormone systems. They mimic fatty acids, the building blocks of fat in our bodies and our food. They can lead to high cholesterol, thyroid disease, ulcerative colitis, testicular cancer, kidney cancer, and pregnancy-induced hypertension. They can disrupt normal female reproductive function, increasing the risk of reproductive diseases. They lead to a reduction in fertility, changes in the menstrual cycle, reproductive hormone disorders, and reproductive tract disorders. So I am worried because of 2 things, because number one, the kids would be exposed to these things if they're in areas of high traffic, which would be the athletic field, I believe. I can't imagine the friction that coming into contact with this turf would not cause that these chemicals in microparticles would be released into the environment. We have lots of farms over here. Okay. And we also have aquifers underneath our many places I couldn't tell you, I don't know the map, but I know we have aquifers and runoff from these areas where this artificial turf is a concern to me. So it's not just the children that would be exposed to this, but the entire community. And I just wanted to say that I believe that it's been voted down a couple of times for a reason, and I don't see people all of a sudden acquiescing to it. That's about it.
Thank you very much. And do we have anyone else? Is that no one else? Okay. 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 Your mic's not on.
Okay, can you hear? Okay. So I wasn't going to speak about the PFAS, but I know the apparently the expert slash salesperson that was here the last time talked about the fact that there were no PFAS in the artificial turf. However, he did agree that the following toxic chemicals are in the turf that he would be laying down: benzene, arsenic, styrene, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, cadmium, chromium. All of these are known carcinogens, human carcinogens. Also VOCs, SVOCs, which are respiratory irritants and asthma triggers, and phthalates, which are a reproductive toxicant. And those are just a few of the things. So I know we keep talking PFAS because I know that's the next thing somebody's going to say, no PFAS in this artificial turf, and that could possibly be true. It remains to be seen, but there are other really seriously toxic chemicals in the artificial turf. So what I did want to actually speak about was recognizing the fact that board members do work hard and you do have to make some difficult decisions. However, I feel the decision regarding the artificial turf is not really a difficult one because essentially the voters have already made it for us. The voters have cast their votes twice already and additionally voiced their sentiments in the survey that was presented to them. So I implore you to listen to and support the majority. I don't think anyone wants to see a third rejection of any athletic field proposition. So I believe if you're looking for a positive outcome with the goal to resolve our field issues, a proposition that includes grass and grass only is the only option. And one more thing I just wanted to mention, because I know that there's some petitions out there. The petition that was presented quite a few weeks ago that was regarding actually community that had concerns regarding the fact that they wanted to see a separate proposition, and also there are issues regarding the grass only. Though that survey, actually, I should say the petition took less than 2 weeks to get together to get all those 298 community voters, supporters. And every one of those was a Red Hook Central School District resident. So I don't know if there's other petitions out there, but please be discerning when you review those other petitions, because I'm not sure, where those residents are from, but I'm not sure if there is, 100% Red Hook residents as this petition was. So that's, I want to say thank you for listening.
Thank you. Oh, can you turn the mic on? I think it got turned off.
Hello.
There you go.
Hi. They sent a letter formally stating that they are not in favor of the turf, the artificial turf. And I just wanted to note that. I won't go into all the details because I think it's been stated clearly from other people, but I'll just read this one short part. Considering this background, we'd like to comment on the proposal to install artificial turf at the athletic field at the Red Hook High School. Our concerns are summarized in a statement from the Mount Sinai Children's Environmental Health Center, which recommends against the installation of artificial turf, plain surfaces, and fields due to the uncertainties surrounding the safety of these products and the potential for dangerous heat and chemical exposures. And it goes on from there. You have the letter. And then I just wanted to comment as just a person in this community, a taxpayer, a parent at this school. And I'm just concerned also, you know, as we know, the artificial turf at the at the rec park is secured because it's so valuable. And our turf will not be secure. And I'm concerned about vandalism. I'm concerned about the expenses there. I think financially, you know, that's a big play in this, that it's so affordable, the community, until it gets vandalized, which there's been vandalism. So I'm just wondering how that's going to play out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Melissa McNeese, what happened since the last meeting? Like, what are we talking about today? Has anything changed, or are we still in the same mulling process? Melissa McNeese. Fair question?
As a matter of protocol, we don't, you're allowed to speak. We don't engage back and forth in conversation.
Okay, because my comments, you know, if you said, oh, we're done with this, we're going on to grass, then I wouldn't bother mentioning that Kathy Hochul has signed legislation outlining the sales of turf that contain PFAS. And if somebody sells us something and they say there's no PFAS in it, and then we get it tested in 2 years and find out it does have PFAS, oh, that's going to be a problem. And also, Sharitha Sarahana has legislation pending, or excuse me, a bill. I hate talking in public. This makes me so nervous. But she's introduced a bill to prevent the sale of hazardous playground surfacing materials made with PFAS, PAHS, and lead. So I called their office and I said, well, this says playground. Would that also apply to other things like soccer fields? And Matthew in our office said, maybe. So they're waiting for us to co-sponsor on it, but they are bringing it up. So I feel like the tides are turning in the favor of grass. And why are we thinking about spending all this money on turf that we might have to get rid of anyway?
Thank you.
How do you do? My name's Tony Chinese. I've lived in the district about 14 years. I'm opposed to the artificial turf because of the medical reasons and the environmental reasons. And I don't know why we're having to vote on it a third time, because we voted it down twice. So I'd like to see this not come to a vote again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Chinese.
And do we have anyone else?
I'm a youth football coach. I'm on the board of youth football. I volunteer.
Hold the mic.
Can you hear me now?
I think you got to turn it on. Yeah, it's good. Okay, you're
All right,
good.
can you hear
All right.
me?
Yep.
All right,
You're good.
yeah. So, and well, you know, and we look forward we were looking forward to a turf field. I've been out to Broad Alban when I was coaching up at Hudson years ago, and they have a beautiful turf field. And since that time, they've added 3 other turf fields there, 3 other football fields. We've had a turf field at Dietz Stadium for over 30 years without any complaints about any health problems. I've never heard anything. I don't know. Have you guys? I don't think so. And other places too. And there was a big article about Carmel where they were making a grass field, but they also have 7 turf fields in the same park that they're making this one grass field. The turf is very convenient. I don't know if you've been out on the football field that we have right now. It's not safe. We had a kid slip on crabgrass, which now, if we had a crew of 6 to 7 people that were gonna take care of the fields at the school every day, all year round, we would have beautiful fields. Like, if you look at, Saugerties, type field. I don't know how many people they have on staff there, but they keep their grass beautiful because they work on it year round. You don't have that, we don't have that. It's been proven. Because if you go out and look on the field now, it's 3 feet lower than it was when it was originally there. Which makes divots on the side. Kids have to run up when they go off the field, which could cause an injury. There are grates on the side of the field that kids can fall on, get hurt. And to speak of arsenic and these other chemicals, you could buy a bottle of water and it contains these chemicals. Now, or a bottle of Coke like I have. Now, if we're gonna worry about, or there's no proof of any of these chemicals causing any problems in any of the other communities, why are we doing that? Have these kids have a turf field that can be played on year round. I was at Round Out. My son had a modified softball or a modified football. After that game, Nets came out. The girls played a field hockey game right immediately after. Lights came on, whatever. So they were able to have 2 sporting events on the same night, 2 different sporting events on the same night, no problem. We couldn't do that on our field. Have to reline it. It's impossible. But it's also very clean. Instead of dirt, mud, very clean. That's what I liked about when I saw it brought open. I said, this would be great for my community because it would be clean, makes a nice campus. I don't know if you see, Hyde Park has a beautiful campus with a very turf field. They put a snack bar in, they have a snack bar, they have bathrooms, it's beautiful. Something like that, I think would make our campus much more clean and much more. That's all I got.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello. Hi, my name is Lauren Cerullo. I am here because I think that the best fiscally responsible thing to do is to put in a multi-purpose athletic field. I think not only have organizations like the EPA, I feel like people are saying they know more than the EPA does. The Environmental Protection Agency came out and said that turf fields are safe, that they aren't affecting the athletes. I've done a lot of research as far as injuries, and they've been saying that they're safe from that. We're looking at PFAS-free turf. And as far as being fiscally responsible, being able to do something like house our softball and baseball field eventually at the school and not pay money to the rec park and things like that. And I also, that field is a beautiful field. I attend athletic events. I go to basketball games. I go to football games. I go to lacrosse games. I try and be there for the students of the community to go to different places. And that field is fun to go and sit and watch at. And right now it's a football field. So we can go and sit and watch football. If you put in turf, it becomes a field that not only is for the football field, but it's for all of the field sports that we have. It becomes more accessible. Students with gait issues, students with wheelchairs and things like that, they can't get on the field as it is now. And even putting grass in, it's not as easily accessible as turf for a lot of those students. We would be able to use it in all the PE classes. All of the students would be affected by having that instead of just having another grass football field. I've done a lot of research. I care a lot about the kids in this community. And if I thought that there was a health issue based on all of the new things that are coming out, looking at the new fields and things like that, I feel like that would be a stopper. But a lot of the things that are coming out are that turf is safe and that, science progresses. So here we are in 2026. A lot of the studies were done years ago, and there have been a lot of innovation and making things safer over the last few years. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once? All right. I think that's it. All right, that brings us to the presentation on the capital project. At this point, I will turn it over to Dr. Warden.
So our team put together some possibilities, some options for everyone to take a look at. But please note, any of these options or none of these options or any combination of these options are absolutely possible. So if you go to the first slide. So if everybody remembers, there were other things in this proposition besides just the turf field that we're we would like to put back up. We have the LED lighting in Mill Road Elementary and also the high school. That would replace the current lighting here, which is energy efficient. So not only will it save energy, it also save costs. We have our gymnasium upgrades at the high school. As many of you know, we have partial, for lack of better terms, equipment set up for air conditioning here at Mill Road Elementary School. We have the Lambs boiler and additional window replacement. We also have the front columns at Lambs. That's where you see the graduation. Those two columns need to be replaced. We have beautiful windows at Lambs, but we need to do some work with the window balances so we can keep those functional. I see that there's two boiler for Lambs, so we just want to emphasize that one again. And then we talked a lot about the lockdown system upgrades. So that would be in Proposition 1. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? I think it's not supposed to say Lamb's boiler in that one, right?
Yeah, I think the fourth item down should be just the window replacement.
Okay, the
And then-
next.
Yep.
Right. And we're going to do at the end what that looks like on an annual cost for a $400,000 home. So we'll get to that. So if you go to 2. So we also gave the board the option to look at Field 1, which is the main field in the district. So we called it 2A, and we're also going to call it 2B. So 2A would mean a turf field, which would also include the track, fencing, and field lighting. So it doesn't make sense to rip up that area without doing the full track. So we put that all into one. So that's the cost for that, also with additional lighting. Yep, artificial. Next one. So this is 2B. So this has to be an or, it can't be an and, because it's talking about the same field. So this is the cost out of what it would be if it was a grass field. So we would have the track, we would have the fence. We would also recommend to reconstruct a second field because we're not really gaining much by just doing the one field as far as playability. We don't recommend the lights because again, grass is not going to increase playtime. We do have to keep people off that, similar to what we're doing now to maintain it. So we wouldn't recommend that. So I called it 2A and 2B because you can't put both of them up because you're talking about the same exact field. So that would be a decision the board has to make. And certainly in there, you could change not having a second grass field. Or you could put a grass field in the 2A. I mean, you can change any of these variables in any of the propositions. And then just for the sake of talking about, you can go to the next one. There's been a lot of conversations around baseball, softball field. We are paying approximately $55,000 a year to go to the rec park for those sports and also tennis. So we wanted to put this up here as a possible solution because we'll show later that the cost per year for voters is $100,000. So that would save the district money by moving those fields back to our campus. And obviously that includes dugouts, fencing, septic system. In addition, it wouldn't make sense to put anything up, any other grass field up if the turf field passed. So in other words, if you all decide to put the artificial turf field up in Proposition 2, the only fields that would make sense to go along with that would be the football and baseball, because those would not be played on the turf field. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you put the turf field up for Proposition 2, I would hesitate to tell you to put other grass fields up, because if that passed, that would not be our priority to then go do the soccer field or the field hockey field.
And that's not to say that there are other grass fields that at some point would need to be significantly redone.
Well, it would probably change the timeline significantly if you had an artificial turf to play on.
It could change the timeline. The reason I ask is that if what you're saying is that if we had an artificial turf field, none of the other 5 fields would need to have any significant work done, then go to Proposition 2B. Why would we have a second grass field here, as opposed to just field 1?
Tom, you want to come up too? I mean, it goes to the playability, but Tom, you want to discuss it a little further?
2B, as is expressed here, the exhibition grass field is the field inside of the track.
Mhm.
So if that becomes a grass field, I don't have any more use of it because it is a grass field. I will have to limit the use on it, as I spoke about in our previous presentations. If that becomes a new grass field, that's great, but we will need to do some major work to redo the soccer field, which needs a good amount of work. If by chance the turf field is built, we can do some drainage improvements to the soccer field, and I would not be able to have to use it as much because I'd have the access to the all-purpose field for multiple games, as Mr. Bauer was talking about, and multiple schedules to make it easier.
Got it. Thank you.
Would you be able to do that work to that soccer field within your budget?
That's a Bruce question.
I mean, or would
Not
we
my
need to
budget,
add that
but-
into the project?
Minor repair.
Minor.
Yes, but anything major replacement would have to be in a capital project like this.
Right, that number involves taking that field down and starting over.
All right, so
Yeah,
if-
we can-
we still have a couple. If you go to slide 6. Garrett, you want to speak a little bit to the slide, or Tom, either or? Tom, don't go anywhere.
I thought it would be helpful to include this slide just to identify that if you did vote option 3, which is softball, baseball field, it would go in these locations. So there's a baseball field in the upper right. That's the best location for that field. And then there would be a choice as to where the softball field would go. So it would basically take out some of the flat fields that you have in order to do those.
I see 3.
That's correct, Russ. So the smaller fields are the softball fields, and that's an option. So you'd
It's
either
options. You
go
could pick
in
which
the
one.
upper.
And the small-
left or
The smaller one
lower
is
right.
softball.
Softball, right?
Right.
Yep. So we wouldn't recommend 2 softball fields. We're
Yeah,
just
oh,
saying
it's
go in
either or,
one
and then
or the other.
I can see the pitching mound there
Yeah.
on the baseball field.
Okay.
All right, and the next slide.
So, so this one is really a summary slide. And as Janet said in the beginning, what we're really showing you tonight is a menu. So we could pick Proposition 1. We cannot pick both 2A and 2B. There's a decision point there. We can pick 3. And other than not picking both 2A and B, we can pick any combination or none at all. We can defer the decision. The urgency tonight is that if we want to vote in October, we need direction tonight in order to be able to have the legal language and the numbers all finalized for the August 29th board meeting. So what you see here is that these projects have a cost as described. By the way, my apologies to Dr. Warden for that one description mistake that was on the Proposition 1 slide. These projects all have a cost, but because we get 64.4% building aid, the local share is just a hair over 1/3 of the cost. The rest is funded by state aid. And then we've boiled this down to the annual cost per $400,000 home. I would emphasize here that that is an average over the 15-year life of the debt service. Typically starts out a little higher in the beginning, and because of a growing tax base and falling off debt, it goes down toward the end of the 15 years. But those are the annual costs for the $400,000 home if you were to pick any of these options. So again, stressing this is a menu to pick from. You can pick some of it, all of it, none of it. The only thing we can't do is put the 2A and 2B up together and ask the community to pick. That's a decision that the board would have to make.
They would have to have completely different scopes of work.
Correct.
So is 3 contingent upon 2A? Or
No.
no? It's not.
No.
You could do
We would envision any version of 2 and 3 being contingent upon 1 passing first. But it would be possible if you chose all of this, it would be possible for 1, 2, and 3, or 1, 2, or 1, 3, but nothing can pass if 1 doesn't pass, is how we would set it up.
But maybe to follow up on that question, if we didn't have, let's say we, went with 2B, which was grass fields, not artificial turf. And this is a question, I guess, for Tom. Would we still be able to have 2 of our fields taken out, 1 for baseball and 1 for softball, if we didn't have our artificial turf?
Can we go back to that slide with the aerial? So the bottom softball field on the right, that is you see the grid there, that's a full practice field. So that is a non-issue. The top field on the left, it would be part of the field hockey field, which schools do that. You use it, it's dirt, that's perfectly acceptable. It's pretty much a non-issue. The baseball field is a little bit more of a challenge because that middle field, you'll have the raised mound. That's the middle soccer field that's out back.
That's the middle practice. Oh,
Correct.
yeah, that's the middle practice field in the back.
Correct. Where we play lower levels on. So in an ideal world, as I've said many times, if field 1 inside the track was a turf field, then this makes perfect sense because I almost would not even need that middle field.
If the field inside the track is grass,
Then this becomes a little more problematic.
Right.
Schedule-wise.
schedule-wise, for where you have softball, for where you have the mound, for baseball,
The
that's,
baseball's a bigger issue because you have that mound.
Yeah.
You're not going to take that mound up and remove it each fall and redo it. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
yeah.
If we go the grass route, time-wise, field 1 and field whatever will be taken out for how long? Like 2 seasons, like what are we looking at? So that means 2027 and 2028 on the road, no home games for football and.
No, soccer, we would be able to manage with, some of the other fields. So our upper level soccer would be on the backfields. Yeah, football, we would most likely have a relationship with Dietz Stadium. We would probably use Dietz Stadium as our home site.
Before we continue our discussion, I believe
Yeah, I'd
we
like
had a-
Michael Hale to speak from Tetra Tech. we've had a lot of conversations about PFAS and chemicals. So I think he's an expert in our architect firm on that. And I think he'd like to address a few of the concerns that the public has,
Sure.
board members have.
Yeah, I think I can bring a few things to bear. Just to preface before I start, I would just have to mention that as the district's consultant, we have no real reason to favor one type of field over another. It doesn't make a difference to us, just to make that clear. So I don't promote one type of field over another. But just regarding the PFAS question that came up, and I think someone already mentioned that that's been somewhat dispelled of late. And I would just make a reference of a study that was done in Europe. It's called the Stockholm study. And that was after the European Union had effectively made a position to the turf manufacturers that they were going to ban turf fields based on PFAS and make that final. Well, the study was done in response to that, and it showed that with the 50 or so fields that were studied, the artificial turf fields, and measuring PFAS, and this was done years ago when PFAS was actually part of the manufacturing process of the artificial turf fields. The measurements on the artificial turf fields were, with the instrumentation that they had, were barely perceptible. They had to extrapolate their readings in order to come up with any kind of a logical number, and those numbers were expectedly low. They also, side by side, studied the same or similar number of natural turf fields with the same instrumentation and found PFAS levels that were more than measurable. In fact, they were elevated in many of those natural turf fields. And it clearly kind of backed up the whole reason we're here and talking about PFAS. And I agree with everything that was said about the dangers of PFAS and the forever chemicals. But unfortunately, with the type of manufacturing that's occurred across the world, it's ubiquitous in our environment. It's everywhere we go, everywhere we spend time. It's particularly present in grasslands and forest lands because that's where it collects so readily. And that's why they get readings like that so much in those type of areas. Having said that, in the last few years, PFAS has been eliminated from the manufacture of artificial turf fields. So in fact, it is now a non-issue for new turf fields. In terms of the SBR rubber, which is also stated as having several chemicals that could be cancer causing, that's not a false statement. The difference here, though, is that the chemicals that are embedded in the SBR rubber are inert and not easily extracted. The extraction techniques that were used by some of the studies were using some heavy solvents to break down the SBR rubber to identify all those chemicals and identify rightfully that, yes, those chemicals are there, but they do not break down in that fashion in the natural world with rainfall and the treading of shoes. So it's not as much of a difficulty that people would expect. It just doesn't simply extract by means of sunlight and physical activity. Having said that too, there are alternatives to SBR. EPDM is a virgin rubber that's been used on several fields. Also has some of the same chemicals, but it's a cleaner, new type of rubber. It's the same kind of rubber that's used in gaskets and like in our drinking fountains in our school here would have EPDM rubber in them in the gaskets. So that type of rubber is used on several fields as well as an alternative, and it has some of the same playable characteristics as SBR. So it's a good alternative that's a much, in many people's minds, cleaner alternative than SBR. In terms of the natural turf versus artificial turf, the one thing we have to really bear in mind as consultants and manufacturers and the people that install them, they have to address the Zmax factor, which is the impact component for these fields. And we've seen that, well, with the governmental standard of a maximum 200 level of ZMAX. The artificial turf fields are usually reading when they're new less than 100. Whereas natural turf fields, if they're brand new and perfect condition, can read in that similar way. The trouble is keeping them in that condition. And I think was mentioned, the maintenance element of it is something that has to be seriously thought out. And the only caution I would make when talking about the reasons to do a natural turf field, because there are many, is to compare the reasoning to professional sports teams. The professional sports teams have resources that a school district could never even imagine to match. When these fields are put in, they'll spend probably twice as much as the district would on their natural turf field, and probably the same as much as they would on a artificial turf field. The cost for them is much higher. They'll put in heating systems, misting systems, irrigation systems, and they'll actually replace portions of that turf after every single game. They'll patch it and work it so that it knits in regularly, and then they'll replace it after every season, and they still only have 10 games on that field in a season. So if the school is willing to do that, something similar, and limit the number of games and the amount of activity, that's fine. But we have to really recognize that it's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort to keep that field with a ZMAX that's going to be acceptable for a playing surface. Any other questions that I might bring to bear here?
Anybody? Questions online or from overseas? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right.
Can I make one other point?
Oh, go ahead.
I brought it up briefly at the July 10th meeting, but I haven't really spoken too much about it. If a turf field is not safe due to injury, if it's deemed not safe due to any of the chemicals that are on it, why do we let our kids play on them anywhere? Because every day I send kids to go play on them, whether it's at the park, whether it's at Bard, or it's at Wallkill, Marlboro, FDR, Millbrook. We play on them every single day. So I just want to reiterate that point.
Yeah. All right. With that, I want to open it up to the board to discuss this. And I think it's important for us all to weigh in and share our thoughts. We're not going to be voting tonight. We'll be voting on this, on the proposition on the 29th. But But the administration does need some guidance and direction on how they'd like these propositions. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Yep.
Oh, we
So
did, yeah.
That's exclusively a clerical error on my part. I was trying to group things for simplicity here. The window replacement listed there is actually at the high school, and that fourth item down should not include the Lamb's boiler work as it is mentioned further down the list. So I would let Tetra Tech and Palumbo add to this, but we are using the same base construction number for a field layout, regardless of which it is, and that's why those show up there with exactly the same number. I don't know if Tetra Tech or Palumbo wants to add something to that.
Yeah, so when you look at both of the fields, we're looking at the amount of square footage, and we're looking at plus or minus 90,000 square feet of disturbance. And the build of both the soccer field and the football field are the same. So we're using the same numbers, but plus or minus 90,000 square feet of area that's being disturbed.
All right. Well, I think it's important for us to weigh in and offer thoughts. I don't want to call, I mean, but I will. And, you can share initial thoughts. We can hear each other. We can change our thoughts. I think it's important to start some discussion and dialogue, and then, we can see where people are starting to settle out. And so, I'm looking to the left, so I'm just going to start with you, Kelly.
Torn, but I am leaning towards the turf field, physically responsible. I was hoping that we could do a turf field and possibly one grass. It sounds like that is not something we could do.
Baseball.
What's that?
The baseball and softball.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you could do the baseball. Okay. So that would be, I just think it's physically responsible. I think the usability, we have talked about the PFAS, and we have heard from people. My opinion, I thought they were experts, not just salesmen. And so that would be the way that I would look at it right now. Just kind of looking through my notes and through it, but that's the way I'm leaning. That would, yeah.
How about someone online? Charlie?
And gave information as to the conditions of each field, but this is not to verbiage. This is the redo. Was that correct? What was stated just a minute ago?
Yeah, it's basically to completely rebuild the football field and the soccer field.
Decipher and discuss the different curve and grass and kind of everything in between. So I just wanted to acknowledge some of their people. My concern, or I guess where I land on this, is regardless of the debate over the materials, what's in the materials, I think deeper than that. I'm not sure that I didn't mean that they're ready to the turf field. So at this point where I'm sitting, yeah, this issue, I feel the community starting a grass field for field one. Outside of that, I think I'm on what's next because of the previous was $1 million grass field replacement. Now it's 2.5, which feels significant. I'm about is financially I also have a concern about, and it's an unfair concern, so I don't think the district be able to answer or training contractors really. But in the timeline to place the turf field, my concern is the recyclability cost. Because although we want to recycle that, if we the costs are not going to be allocated so long from now, even an estimate today's numbers wouldn't be accurate 8, 10, 12 years from now. So I have concern about the cost closer then. So I think a lot of people have mentioned it's fiscally responsible, but I don't know if it is long term what I think about. So I guess that's where my thoughts are right now.
So I was going to say on the 2.5 million for the grass fields, originally there was a 1.5 million number that was used back during our work session, and that was an average across all 6 fields. Because these are the 2 competition fields that would be full rebuilds, I think that
And additionally, aiming for simplicity here, the base construction cost of those fields is still estimated at $1.5 million. These numbers include contingency, time escalation, and the related incidental costs. So these are all-in numbers, not just construction cost numbers.
right. Okay. But so as far as where you would be leaning, 2A or 2B, Charlie? The grass. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Austin? Yes.
I have a couple of clarifying questions. The audio was probably a little bit. Anyone else? For the is there any flexibility in some items? Is there any flexibility? A turf field with separate emotion and it can't be but in soccer field and a artificial turf.
I had the same question.
Like we said before, if the turf get passed, it doesn't make sense to do the soccer field. So it doesn't seem reasonable for me to put up a turf field and a soccer field. Unless we assume that something's not going to go through, right? So if you put up a turf field, it goes through, the grass field that would make sense would be a baseball field. That's why you can do that. I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me.
Field has some degradation of time. So, obviously there is that benefit, and then accessibility is also in. Is there anyone that would be able to do the topic of accessibility? PE classes and for general use proposition. If that were to be what we're putting forward.
Sure. So the challenge with a grass field is getting things like wheelchairs or, students who have difficulty walking and things like that, because you're going to have a natural crown, you're going to have thicker turf. The nice part about the artificial field, as I've said before, basically from track to track, it will be pretty much a flat surface. The fibers would be much smaller, so you'd have the ability to have children who have difficult situations, either walking or mobility, the ability to go out there as they would on a more firmer surface. So that's a huge plus for me. We have a lot of students in our district who have those issues. They are involved in our phys ed programs. They're involved in our adapted phys ed programs, and that's an important piece that would be exceptional for them to have, and a very positive thing, for their development physically and emotionally as well.
Community engagement, we heard from people back and forth, words brought in, and so I think that process is one that was missed last time around. So, I understand that there's hesitancy about bringing the artificial turf field up again, and I share in that hesitancy. But I do think it is different. So one question that I would have is, what level of specificity can be used in terms of materials if that were to be brought up? Or, in the proposition, how specific can we do materials being used?
Do you want to talk about?
That can be accomplished. We would probably need a little bit of assistance from our design professionals to get those written. But those kinds of things could be specified into the proposition.
So you could write PFAS free, you could write virgin rubber, you can write recyclable.
I believe it was lead free as well.
So I suppose where is I do wish, I have hesitancy about saying, oh, despite the benefits of 2K, the part of the field, this is the third time that it would be public, and I think there's inherent risk in that. I think if that were the option, there would have to be a lot done between now and the vote in terms of sure voters are informed about what would be proposed and how that's different than what was made. It's a decisive issue. In with not too large last time around. But nonetheless, it will remain a decisive issue. Pockets of support and opposition that will likely be unchanged as pockets that may swayed by the work that has been done in the community engagement aspect. Certainly there will be happy to see that certain commitments to environmentally friendly materials are made, and specificity related to PFAS. At the same time, there's still a risk. So my question is, how do we feel about kind of going on a leap of faith with something where the outcome could be nothing expected for a third time, versus what I was kind of hoping the case would be in terms of having the artificial turf field one, and then doing some work to improve the grass fields. We've heard about the soccer field and hearing from Coach Pavlich about drainage and messing with the number of games and programming, so. That's kind of where it's at. I remain hesitant about maybe for it to be. And I also, when I look at 2A, my wondering is it is it meeting the needs in terms of educational programming, athletic accessibility? And then also, does it alleviate the wear and tear on the other grass fields?
Can I go because I am like riding that wave?
Good.
Very articulate, Austin. Thank you so much. You captured a lot of my thoughts. I actually disagree that we should, I think we've put ourselves in a box right now where we're so hyper focused on one or two fields. And Tom, you just got up and said, or somebody spoke and said, you know, this district is moving on to their 6th or 7th field. We started with, we have 6 fields. They are all not optimal. Our ultimate goal should be to get as many of them optimal. So I'm not sure I agree with the idea that we can't consider turf its own prop and put natural grass out for the soccer and 2 fields. Because again, you know, we should be long-term thinking about repair 5, 10, 15 years. This is not just a one and done fix. This is an ongoing problem that we haven't been able to address in a way that has led us to where we are today. So what I'm hearing, like, and the other concern I have is if we put it all or nothing, and and again, I'm not even going to state what I care about anymore because I'm very tired. But if it is natural grass, now we're taking out 2 years of accessibility. You know, we've got to acknowledge some compromise between access and fixing. And what I'm saying is that we've gotten ourselves to this place where we're just like hyper focusing on 1, 2, or 3 fields. Why did we lose perspective of the long term? So even if turf goes, we should be addressing those natural fields regardless, you know? So maybe, and again, it's not all at one time. And I appreciate the fiscal stress. And that's why I agree with what Austin's saying is I would like to see not an one or, and we're all here today to drive a hard line. I agree with everything you said, and I'm going to comment on that in a minute about what we've done between the last 2 votes and now, not disregarding and not listening to the community and not disavowing the vote, but I want to come back to that. Why can't we do prop 1, do field 1 as an exhibition field, and then do a prop 3, which is 2 grass fields? If one goes down and one goes up, we win something. If both go down, we win nothing. I don't think that's going to happen. And if both go up, we've got a community committed to 3 fields. I don't know.
I hear you, and I know we've talked about, you know, a variety of permutations of how to do this. I think you raise an important point, the long-term focus. We have 6 fields at the work session that we had earlier this summer. You know, we looked at artificial turf, or we looked at, you know, $1.5 million for 6 fields. And it seems like, you know, we've lost a little bit of that focus on, all of the fields need work. One of the great things that we got was this report that hopefully you all read it. I read it. I underlined parts of it. I'm going to read it again. It was a great report from Cornell, from Chris, who was Sitko, who was here at the work session, and he went through field by field and he talked about what each field needs. There's a schematic in the back that talks about, you know, work to be done on each one. You know, I've thought, you know, a lot about this over the last several weeks, the last several months, but particularly the last several weeks. And I've listened to a lot of our community. I think I ended our work session with a comment about the importance of listening to our community, and I have. And I see a lot of benefits with an artificial turf field. We've talked about them. We've talked about what some of the concerns are. At the end of the day, I think that from what I'm hearing from our community, and this is a little bit along the lines of what Austin was expressing and some of his hesitancy, is that we've put it up to vote twice. The community has said no twice. We can try and get more specific on specifications of materials, but I'm not sure that's really going to change people's minds. Some people focus on PFAS and chemicals. Some people focus on safety and injury. Some people focus on the recyclability or 200 and how many thousand pounds of plastic we're laying down, and is that going to be recyclable? So I've listened, I've heard all of this. I've read countless emails. And as much as I see the benefits of an artificial turf field and that taking workload off of some of the other fields, to be honest, I think our community has spoken and has made up its mind to some extent and to a large extent. And I'm not sure that between now and October, we're going to be able to change their minds if we wanted to go with an artificial turf field. And that being said, I think it's important that we get started doing something. There's been talk that, well, maybe we don't have to do something and maybe we can wait till the spring. This isn't an issue that's going to change by the spring. It's not like over the winter people are going to change their minds. No, it's not going to change by the spring. The only thing that'll happen is we're just 6 months, further down. 2 years ago, we looked at doing an artificial turf field. We got nothing done. And what have we done on the fields? We've made no progress. We tried to pass an artificial turf field in May, and we didn't. And we've spent a lot of time over the summer. The district has done a tremendous amount of work, and I applaud all of it. But based on, my processing and my thinking of all of this, and ultimately the need to get something for our kids that improves the quality of the fields that they play on, improves the safety, I think that I lean very heavily towards Proposition 2B in doing grass fields, because I just think that 2A is not something that we are likely to be able to change in minds and get people to support. And ultimately, we need to listen to the community and move forward with something. So that's where I come down.
Can I pipe in?
Sure.
Can it be my turn?
It's absolutely your turn now. That's all I can say.
Okay, awesome. I think
Yeah,
I'm actually.
Aaron was
yep.
going to go, and then Jen, you could go.
So I feel that we have listened to the community. We've gone above and beyond. We've made all of the changes that the community wanted us to do. And I think we have a real opportunity here to be future forward in our facilities. We're talking about a turf complex that potentially can be PFAS free, lead free, recyclable. We've done those changes. And I just think we have an opportunity to say, hey, we have the greenest facility in possibly in the state. And I think that's really important. But at the end of the day, I have to look back at our districts, are looking at what's best for children and looking at the rater profile and all of these things. And what's best for children is to get them outside, to get them playing, to increase their usage and their time being physical. I think that's really important. For me, it's 2024, and it's not okay that some of our students don't have access to our fields. That's a problem. Our students don't have access to phys ed in the winter and recess. They can't go outside. On a turf field, they can. I have one at the district that I work in, and we are out there all winter long. So, Jennifer, you've mentioned this before. You've talked about wanting students to have more recess time. And I think this is an opportunity really to get our students outside and moving and being more physical. I have a whole huge list of things here, so I want to keep going. The community, I don't think our community is aware of the opportunity that we could possibly have by playing multiple games on a field each night. These are things that benefit local businesses. And I think that's really important to mention because when you can host 2 or 3 games a night, you'll have lights. Where do those families go after those events? They might go and get gas, stop at Stewart's, pick up some ice cream, get some takeout. Like our local businesses have an opportunity to benefit, from this as well. With grass, we just don't have the option to host multiple games. We can't host the Special Olympics. We can't host sectionals and MHALs. Where do we go? We go to other fields that have turf. What else? Accessibility, I mentioned that. That's really, really important. And that's why the rec park put in theirs. So it's accessible, but it's not, it's locked. We have the opportunity here to have a facility that's open. It's paid for by taxpayers. But our field is seen as controversial when the rec park is not. I can't quite wrap my head around that. I just think we have an opportunity here to pick the safest, best product. And yeah, I mean, I'm definitely for turf. We just can't do it with grass. We just can't.
Jen, I think you wanted to weigh in?
Clear against installing synthetic field here at our school. It did not, was it with the board to put this synthetic turf field forward again in the same community a third time. That said, I do think we have a common denominator. Do want to support athletic field for our students. And I propose we use this common denominator that we share with the opposition to me, which is something that we have not before yet, and not given them the option to vote on yet. Synthetic turf field may prioritize playability. However, it has a short-lived lifespan at a $4.7 million cost. For including it again, needs 10 years. While on the other hand, a well-maintained natural grass field at half the cost, it can be a forever field. They sound and healthy. So I would really like to see us give our community the option to vote an alternative choice that we've offered. So in terms of the presentation, I would bring forward Proposition 1 as presented, and that's all the building work that's essential to our schools, and put that together first as a separate option to the Proposition 2.
Thanks, Jen.
And she's frozen.
You're frozen a little bit, but I think you had wrapped up.
Hey,
Okay. Oh, yeah, we can hear you. Okay. Yeah, yeah. You didn't freeze at the worst awkward moment, so.
All right, Russ, I have a couple more things because I
Yeah.
didn't really weigh in.
And,
but-
yeah, and just one thing, I think we've all kind of gone around, but we can go around again. And I think it's important that we continue to cycle and discuss and debate this till we try and see if we have
Yeah.
some common guidance.
Yeah, yeah.
It may not be fully unified, but some common guidance. So.
That's great. Everyone's points were very awesome and valid. I think a couple points though, and again, piggybacking off of something Austin said and Aaron, I just wanted to be clear, like very clearly voted down twice, no argument there. However, I do slightly disagree that it is singular, that it was turf or no turf. The feedback we got was unbundling, not enough clarity, not enough information. You know, we've done multiple exercises as a district, surveys, the bleacher meetup. That was our outreach to try to assess, you know, the question was asked point blank. If you voted no, why did you vote no? People answered not black or white, no turf. It was, did not have enough information, was concerned about lack of, you know, information around the environment, very angry that you bundled. There were a variety of reasons, okay? And that interpretation is what then further guided us to then invite all of these specialists in to do that, right? To listen to the experts from Cornell, to listen to our architects, to, I know someone referred to him as a salesperson, but the person who's representing the turf field to speak to that granular level of expertise to arm us better and give the public what they're asking for. I do agree with Erin. I know they are not of voting age, but we always have to remember that this Board of Education represents our student body, and they don't have a voice because they're not of legal age to vote. So that weighs very heavily, I think, in the feedback that we've gotten. So I just want to be clear again, I'm not arguing a vote. I know there's ramifications for putting up again a third time. I'm not trying to dismiss, but it's not that clear. Okay. We had to do a lot of granular work on understanding that vote. And I think that we've done a really good job to try to address all the varieties of feedback. And it was not just one push that no turf, no turf. We got people that emailed us that said, I voted no with the information provided. I would now consider voting yes. So that is we have to be careful because I feel like we forget sometimes that we represent a really big and diverse group of people. The other thing I would say is, the hardest part of our job is to encapsulate all that is being asked of us from this administration. And sadly, not any one path forward addresses all of the issues that we need to address. I am fine with grass. It does not address usability. It does not address full accessibility. It will take our students out for a couple of years. It will force all those football players and all those lacrosse players to go to turf fields. So while it's a win in some ways, and I get that, and I respect the profound belief of people in the environmental and safety, it will not fix for the short term critical issues that we value in this district and things that we care about. Just as much as you all have come here and spoken to us, we've had people send out, we've had mobile accessible parents speak to us. We've had students speak to us. We've had, you know, so it's challenging. We've gotten a lot of feedback from the public. We've been called a lot of names. I'm just asking the public to respect and understand that none of this is cut and dry, because something is going to have to give. And again, that's why I'm saying, you know, can we look beyond this immediate one field, two field, three? Like, is there a better compromise that reaches all of those goals? And I think a lot of us came from that place. We want a solution that can hit all of it, right? Environmental safety, health and safety, accessibility, mental health. Because at the end of the day, I am telling you, the number one issue beyond facilities and even academics is the mental health of our students. And there's no way you cannot correlate the outside time, the year-round usage. I've said this on a personal note. I am a mother of 4 children. I spend hours driving to Albany and Poughkeepsie for the usage of facilities that we lack in this community. And there's a lot of young parents who voted no. I promise you, you're going to sing a different tune when your kid says, I want to be on a different basketball team or a travel soccer team. It doesn't exist here and it's challenging. And that is my sadness. And again, I'm going to move on. At the end of the day, I think if you guys really believe that we haven't done enough to tip that scale of that whatever percentage of margin to get turf, then put up natural grass and let's move on, honestly. And then, or put up natural grass and then the facilities committee can keep looking forward to maybe a future artificial exhibition field at some point. I don't know.
Well, the facility committee will have to continue to look at what we do on remaining fields. You know, you raised a lot of good points. At the end of the day, we have to put something forward that our community is willing to support, both at the ballot box and more generally be happy with. And like,
But Russ, no, I'm not sure I agree with that because the community, you know, they don't make decisions as far as what's best for this district and our students. Yes, they vote on it, but they don't make the schedule that Tom has to make. You know, we have other things that we have to look at. Transportation, like there's a lot of things that are going to come into putting up grass fields. You know, transportation for 2 years when our students have to go play on a turf field. That's a huge thing for me.
okay, and so I'd like to finish.
Yes.
There are lots of great reasons and benefits that an artificial turf field would provide. And I think even a lot of people that may be opposed to it would acknowledge that, yes, there is more usability, there is accessibility. But I come back to the fact that, you know, we've been at this for a couple years now, and we need something that our community is willing to accept at the ballot box so that we can get moving on improving our fields. And I mean, we can debate, you know, injuries, you know, impact factors and PFAS versus, you know, PFAS free. Is it really PFAS free? Benzene, all, you know, we can debate all that, you know, on and on. And, you know, I've seen articles, you know, that, you know, and people, you know, take both sides of it. But at the end of the day, you know, we need something that we can pass and move forward with. And
What if we take field 1 off and just do 2 natural fields, see if that passes, and then address field 1 at a different time? Oh, well, I'm just saying, like, I really struggle with the 2 years of no usage on that.
I think
field.
the only issue would be hard for us to probably pick which ones, not knowing that other variable. But Tom, what do you, like, how would that work if you just put up 2 fields and then later?
If you're looking to not do something inside the track, definitely the soccer field. And then I would suggest one of the 2 back fields to be redone. Field hockey field, it needs some minor improvements. I don't think it's a full redo on the field hockey field.
And how,
If that field was big enough where I could play another sport on it in the spring, I would say possibly, but the footprint is not there.
and then how many, I mean, the track is like on its last legs, right? Like, is there like a point now where it's like?
We're still using it. It's hard. If you go on a newer track, you can definitely feel the difference. Bruce and I were talking a little bit today about, you know, if it looks like it's going to be a little bit more time, maybe bringing a company in to do some minor repairs to get us through. But I keep coming back to the fact that if you're going to do that complex, and the contractors here and architects will tell you, it's easier to do it all at once.
I know.
Makes no sense to build a track and in 2 years from now, try to build a field.
Is field 1, would you say, in the poorest condition?
Yes.
You saw the aerial shot. It's like,
And again, I urge people to go walk it. I mean, and
I-
again, you know, an athletic field is, the properties of it are very different than the lawn in your backyard. You know, there's a lot of qualities that we're looking for. And again, we're seeing these qualities in other communities that we're going to. So
Yeah.
I know you're sick of hearing me say that.
Yeah. Kelly?
So a couple things, I was worried about the track, the lights, the fence, and just what Tom said, does it make sense to do that if there's a possibility at a future date that we'd have to rip it up because we're putting in a new field at Field One? Along with what Kate said, there were 270, I think votes in our survey that said what they didn't have was enough information. So have we met that criteria? I think we have done a lot to meet some of those questions, talking about the PFAs and being more environmentally conscious, the recyclability, those types of things. So I do think that we have met a lot of those questions. Is it enough? That's a magic 8-ball answer, right? I think that if we did do turf, because we are so invested, we have so many environmentally conscious, not only community members, but just, groups and things like that, we could possibly set an example and be the most eco-friendly synthetic field in the state. We could put that forth as well. Is that an option? We've talked about, was it coconut husk or things like that? Is that something we would look at? Is the recyclability, the long-term lifespan, is it shorter? There are natural ones. I think Austin was talking about that a little bit, about that recyclability piece.
I think too, I'm gonna just want to piggyback off that. We've talked about, looking at our climate here when Chris was here from Cornell and making his recommendation. It's not a secret. Like we're facing climate change and we've dealt with unprecedented rain the past few years. I don't see that changing as well. And I think that just leaves us with more problems down the road if we don't address, some of those climate issues also.
So here's a thought. Prop 1, keep it as is. Just hear me out. Prop 2, Field 1 only, synthetic exhibition track lights. Prop 3, 2 natural fields, soccer and field hockey. All 3 go up, we're on our way. Turf goes down, okay? We put it to bed. We put up natural Field 1 football, May 2020, whatever, this year on the and then we know. I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
just putting that's like that
It's-
was my original thinking.
And that was a thought I had. And I think what Janet and team would say, and they can respond to this, but I think what they would say is if the artificial turf field did pass, they wouldn't want to spend that money on redoing the soccer field.
But if the community does, then good for us, because now we've got 3 fields.
I think it's a
we're
great
addressing.
idea.
It's a compromise.
Do you
I
understand what I'm
think-
saying?
I think it's a great idea. I think maybe what we could do, and I probably would have to talk to Tom and the architect just a little bit more about how much we'd specify what fields. Right? You want to talk about some of the other fields? Maybe it's because when you say field hockey, from what you just said, that wasn't the whole field.
So that's the first field when you come in from the high school right on the left.
Right.
I
So,
only can play field hockey on it due to the size of it, and
Right.
it has some drainage issues just on a small side of it. If it was larger, yeah, that would be attractive to use it for something else in the spring, but I really can't. So
but you're not saying make that one larger.
I don't think you could.
Can't you got it? No, well, you can't. Okay. It doesn't have the space on the side there. Okay.
So then, as I said, I would probably select one of the fields, the 2 soccer fields towards the east side, and definitely the main competition soccer field, if that's what we were looking at.
We can
See,
certainly put
the-
that.
The other complication, if all of that passed, you'd have to phase this a little bit in order to get state aid, because even looking at what we've talked about here tonight, you're going to be pushing up against what are called cost allowances. that then push the entire the entire cost locally. So if what you proposed were to be approved in its entirety, we would have to phase that out into the future in order to get state aid on it.
Yeah,
Which
we'd
makes-
probably have to anyway for playability. It probably, you couldn't do those all.
We would
three
have to do
Yeah.
it anyway,
We
right?
talked about timelines that, yeah, as Lou said, you need that growing season. You know, if the artificial surface passes, it's 14, 16 weeks. That's a summer, you know, we would maybe close it early in the spring, depending on the build, and, you know, you push back some of your home football games to that's what most schools do. They push them back, and, you know, they finish their field in September, and by October, it's yours.
So when we talk about the natural grass fields, we're talking about the ones with that sand base that he was talking about, right? The sand.
So, and another thing about the turf field, yes, the initial cost is higher, but whenever the replacement cycle is, you're just replacing that top piece. The whole base structure stays there. So it's a much more cost friendly when you're on that second field down the road, however long it is.
So for the grass, it's go in, I guess you're putting in drainage pipes, things like that. Then you put the sod back down, then the sand, then the grass.
I mean, he could talk to how it's actually built. Yeah.
You know, again, keeping back in the theme, Russ, 'cause I know you're contemplating numbers in life of the ultimate goal of all six. So if turf goes down, but the two natural fields pass, we put up next May, field one, natural grass. It passes. Now we're staggered. That addresses our issue of that and work and whatever. Get that one going. Then in another 2 years, you do natural grass on the remaining two. I'm just saying it's,
No, and then that's permutation we've discussed before, because these would all be unbundled, and the community could decide if they wanted turf or not turf. And there's a separate proposition that would be two grass fields, and if people want to support that, they can. Hopefully, you know, we get enough people to support, you know, the grass fields so that we can at least get started on that if the turf field does not pass.
I think it's a great compromise to include both, you know. We're hearing both sides of the community. Yes, there's, you know, the grass side, but there's also a great deal of people who, and we all saw that petition, who did sign that petition. And I think we shouldn't discredit them also. I think it's really important.
Austin, is that kind of what you were thinking? Put you on the spot.
I think, you know, to say that we have decided, I think, have data that suggests that some people might be adequately satisfied with the commitments being made to material and artificial turf field. In terms of maybe supporting it if the materials were specified and were made. And then, yeah, of course, us left with nothing. So I think getting to work on grass fields that still don't need work would definitely benefit students, you know, in the short term and long term. I would definitely wait.
Have to change them. Those numbers would just change on number 3 if you went that way.
I mean, Jen, Charlie, I don't imagine that changes your position. I just want to make sure you guys are heard.
Charlie, can you hear us? Yeah.
I see it a little differently than trying to make it. I think that's what's done. And I think we've done a good job to kind of sort of be in the middle somewhere. Just not sure that's going to be passable. And I know there may be people on that in our board, that in our community. I'd like to say yes to somewhere. I just think that our community is different, and I'm hearing that. I also still struggle with the long term. I bring this. And, thinking about that a lot about mental work, and there's a lot of details that could be debated. I think thinking around it, in comments. So for me, I'd like to put some, sort of in the same sentiment that Jen was saying, that we want to something to move athletics a little bit, because something like something like 25 years. In that same sentiment, 25 years. In terms of the track and field activity, I don't know. To me, I thought not trying to do everything. I think ultimately they decide. Still,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an easy question. With this idea and, if these grass fields do pass, will there be additional maintenance costs that we need to think about now? All right, I
Yeah,
just, was-
I
that's
I
kind
could
of
not,
important.
I could not accurately quantify, but the grass fields do come with additional maintenance costs.
Yeah. I mean, are we looking at possibly needing to hire an additional groundskeeper? When Chris was here and he spoke about the grass fields that he maintains, he's a master's plus level groundskeeper. So I'm just wondering if that's something that we're possibly having to look at as far as to maintain these fields.
I'm,
So you guys want to comment on that? Can you go to the mic, Eric?
Thank you.
I'd be glad to comment, and Michael, you might want to chime in too. I think in order to maintain grass fields to the level that Chris described, you would need to increase your maintenance. Likely a person and also expertise as well. You'd also need someone who was cognizant of when to say no for play, and you'd have to listen to them. So that's an important component to grass, to say we can't play it today.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just add to that, I support what Garrett's saying. I think you need minimally one fully committed person, and probably not just one. You'd need at least one, maybe two assistants to that person to carry out all the needed operations over the course of the life of the natural turf fields. So it's a fairly large commitment, I think, to be able to sustain a natural field. Absent that, you may have a playable field for a few years, and then you're going to be back potentially where you are today.
Yeah, I've thought about this maintenance question because it's part of the reason we're in the problem we are now, is that these fields have, one, they haven't been rebuilt in a long time, and fields do only last so long. But even if we had an artificial turf field, we still have 5 grass fields, and we can't. And I don't think we can assume, since we've got an artificial turf field, we don't have to really pay as much attention to, the grass fields. Those 5 grass fields are still going to need to be cared for. So in what Mike had just mentioned, you know, as far as, and I don't know if we need a full-time, we used to have a full-time groundskeeper. But whether we need a groundskeeper, whether he needs an assistant, whatever expertise Garrett referenced, I think we need that, whether we have an artificial turf field or not, because we're talking about either 5 grass fields or 6 grass fields. And I don't think we can assume because we have an artificial turf field, oh, well, then, you know, we'll let the other fields go, because once you let them start to go, they deteriorate very quickly. Once you don't overseed sufficiently, once you don't keep, that's the way you keep the weeds out. And that's the only way we can keep weeds out, because we can't use pesticides for weed killer. And so the only thing we can do is like overseed and keep the grass thick. So again, on the maintenance issue, I think we've got some significant maintenance planning to do, regardless of what we do as it relates to an artificial turf field.
So we would probably think around 45 for salary, and then about another 15 to 20 for benefits. That'd be for one employee. And I think, Scott, you were thinking 2?
Well, Kelly made a comment earlier that, you know, maybe we could be known as having the most environmentally friendly artificial turf field around. You know, I wonder if we couldn't be known as having the most amazing grass fields in, you know, the Hudson Valley. And when people come and play on our grass fields, they're like, wow, those are good.
I just want
May not be what the New York Jets have.
Yeah. I just want to
It won't be, but
Yeah, I just want to caution that when it comes to budget time and when we have to look at positions, it comes down to teaching staff. So if we're going to take on 2 maintenance people and additional costs, we're now at around $200,000, which could be 3 teachers. So just, you can't have everything. So that's also something that we have to really start to get used to as they start to talk about this new formula. We don't know what we're facing. So we did not budget for this. So something will have to go. And we just had a pre-K class. And if that's what the board wants to do in the future too, is to accommodate all those classes, some point choices need to be made. And that's just I don't know, Bruce, if you want to.
yeah, but
I know Bruce probably would want to say that before me.
But to that point, I'm not sure that really weighs in on whether we do an artificial turf field or not, because whether we have 5 grass fields or 6 grass fields, they still need sufficient maintenance.
But usage.
Hearing people that do put in the turf field, there is less maintenance overall. I mean, I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, but you basically said it, and to the extent that there is a reduced maintenance requirement, it's because the natural grass fields get so much less impact play, because so much more play is done on the artificial turf field. So to that degree, your maintenance requirements are lessened. But you still do have to maintain those natural fields. There's still an element of maintenance that has to occur, but it's not as frequent, not as drastic as it would have been absent the artificial turf field.
Austin, are you there? Austin? Oh, there you are. Yeah. I know we had been cycling around and wanted to cycle back to you.
is education. It's untapped benefit. Also, and I'm also just athletics ability is here. And so I think it's important for the town and that student. But also like so those are just the having some information on official and
Yeah, I was pausing to think. Yeah.
You're thinking?
I'm pausing
Oh.
to think.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
She's like, can we please? Holly, what is it, 1 a.m. where you guys are? Oh my goodness. And I don't even know, it's a.m.
I'm at 2 a.m.
Oh, boy, dedication, Charlie. For Charlie's sake, can we? wrap it?
I don't know if this is, yes.
Did Tom leave?
Tom, go.
All right,
In the morning.
all right.
It's felt like a really great discussion, all board members. Okay. I do, want to just raise my concern about the idea of kind of the trying to fit sort of like a square peg in round hole in kind of saying that athletic turf be made to be environmentally like sound and, it's like trying to make it something that it's not. And actually, if we go with something that is natural, that is actually by definition, going to be, the best environmentally conscious decision that we can make as a board. And I think that is one as a board and a district. So I don't want to lose sight of trying to make something that's plastic come off as optimal environment. It just like the lines of getting a little. So I just wanted to say that last bit, and I appreciate everyone.
There are natural options. I mean, we've talked about that for the synthetic. I mean, we talked about the coconut or whatever. That's what I was getting at. Yeah, or something like that.
The facilities committee last year, we talked about all the different sort of infills and options to try to make the field more environmentally sound. And it would come back to cost. And also that each of the infills affects playability differently.
Yeah.
So
And
going with more natural ones, higher maintenance were affiliated with those, and it decreased playability because you have to let things rest. We actually did all of those infills really thoroughly last year during the.
yeah, and the conclusion that kind of came out was that coconut husks or banana peels or whatever else didn't really make there were challenges with those, but virgin rubber as opposed to crumb rubber, SBR as it was referred to.
I actually saying,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, you know,
Yeah.
to go that route based on the.
Make
you know,
it as
resources-
environmentally.
Right.
sound.
Understand.
Yeah, as far as possible. I'm not saying trying to change it.
Or this might be just a Bruce or a Janet question. So if we went with 2 grass fields in a proposition, would we have flexibility post vote to determine what fields those are? Can we be vague in that proposition as far as what fields? So then we can determine, you know, so we can really look at those fields.
Yeah, yes, that would be allowable.
It would be.
Yes, so you could be as specific or as vague as
Okay.
you wanted. There would be pros and cons to that, you know, if
I
the
got you.
voters didn't know, that might change their mind. But yes,
Okay.
you could be intentionally vague and leave flexibility, or you could be very, very, very specific.
Thinking like if that turf field were to say pass, then you could have the option for one grass field could be a, you know, a softball field and one could be a soccer field. I'm just trying to think through that.
Yeah. We can't do either or.
You cannot, yeah,
Correct.
you cannot do either or.
Right.
And so it's important that the propositions have specificity such that there couldn't be the perception of overlap of scope of work or that decision being made later. It's
You may not, right, the
that's a
question-
slippery slope probably for Paul
which-
Alloy.
Right, which is, right. So the question that was asked was, could it be left vague? It could be. You may not want to, but it could be left vague.
Vague might not have been the best word. I just meant like as far as is there flexibility so, you know, Tom can determine what field may need to be. Yeah, okay, thank you.
I know where you're coming from. I think that there are 2 downsides to it. One is I think the community would have a hard time understanding it. So if you're asking them to support that and they know there's a possibility things might change, that could be challenging. I think you could also potentially have a seeker issue with that as well. So we'd want to check with the attorneys on how to do that. I think my gut reaction is you should say what field you're going to do as grass and
So soccer, field hockey.
yeah. and
Okay,
then
I get it.
And stick with it.
Okay. Got it.
So I'm going to summarize what. Oh, this. Well, no, this is great handwriting compared to mine. So proposition 1 would be as was presented earlier. Proposition 2 would be to go to 2A. 2A would be field 1, which would be inside the track, and that would include redoing the track, the fence, the artificial turf field. We're looking at 2B, but can you go to 2A? Yeah. So there would be 3 separate independent propositions. Proposition 1, Proposition 2, which, or we would call it 2A, which would be the turf field and would include doing the track and the lights. And that would be designated in the proposition specifically as field 1. And then the third proposition would be, go to 2B. The third proposition would be 2 grass fields. The track and the fence wouldn't be included because those would be in 2A. So, and we would specify that one was the soccer field and one was
Field hockey.
yeah. And that we can do, and there's no overlap of scope of work, so we wouldn't have a risk of a seeker issue or anything. The soccer field, and then probably maybe field hockey, field hockey wouldn't be, or yeah, Tom's kind of thinking, yeah, one of the back practice fields. Yeah, yeah. So the benefits of this, obviously, they're all separate propositions, and the voters can choose. And if the voters don't support turf, they don't vote. They don't have to vote to support turf. If they don't support grass, they don't vote to support grass. I think the only downside risk I see of this is it's a large ticket item. We're talking about 6 million, 7 plus 7 million. We're talking about if I take 1.3 off of this is 5 million. So the 2 grass fields would be 5 million. Yeah. And then 2A would still be 7.28 million. Nothing's changed there. 2B, which would be doing 2 grass fields, would just be 5 million flat. And we wouldn't have Proposition 3 of baseball fields. So these are all separate independent propositions. People can vote how they want. I guess the only risk is, we need something to pass so we can move forward with progress on our fields.
Yeah, and I think Bruce just wants to comment on the phasing in of each of those amounts.
So this would be perfectly allowable. If it were to all pass, you would definitely have cost allowance issues, and you would have to decide what goes first and what waits until your cost allowance recovers.
And what's the cost? Give me a metric around cost allowance so we could think about how that might.
So the 2A and 2B all go against what's called an incidental cost allowance. And the high school current incidental cost allowance is about $8 million. So the exhibition field can be split between the high school and the middle school. But those other fields will all have to go on the high school cost allowance. So the next time that we get a major reduction in the cost allowance at the high school is 2028. We gain back about 2.5 million in 2028. So we would have to think very carefully first about how we split the exhibition field between the high school and the middle school. And then we would have to wait, presumably, until 2028 to do a portion of these fields as the cost allowance recovered. The other option would be to propose it at entire local cost once you exceed the cost allowance.
Once we exceed the cost allowance, the state picks up roughly 2/3. Once we exceed, help me with the math there to think about what that.
So the local cost basically triples once you start exceeding the cost allowance.
And the cost allowance is 8 million.
At the high school. Now that cost allowance is really there to pay for the incidental costs of your inside the building work. So in the $8 million Prop 1, a portion of that is going against the incidental cost allowance to the extent that you're paying architects and construction managers and the like. So every project invades the incidental cost allowance to some extent. The way the state has this set up, all exterior work all goes against the incidental cost allowance. So you are more restricted in how much the state is willing to aid for things like athletic fields and parking lots.
Let's say all 3 of these, as we discussed them, pass, and that totals, well, we have 8 million in Prop 1, 7.3 million in Prop 2, Prop, what we're calling Prop 3 now, the 2 grass fields would be a flat 5 million. So 5 plus the 7.3 is 12.3.
Yep. So thinking about it just off the cuff, you would have to push most of the exhibition field over to the middle school cost allowance. And then you would probably still have to defer one of the two two B fields to later
Mm.
when your cost allowance at the high school recovered.
One of the two would have to be deferred, and that would be until 2028.
That's my off the cuff. I'd have to sit down and look more carefully, but you've got 8 million and 5 million, which is 13 million. If you push the bulk of the exhibition field to the middle school, you would probably be able to get the first field done at the high school. You'd probably have to defer the second field until your cost allowance recovered.
I mean, it's not terrible because we don't want two bills unplayable at the same time either. So, I mean, right? So we're staggering to an extent.
Building cost, I know they're incidental. Still, the buildings are gonna need maintenance. I don't think it's a fiscally responsible option. That's what's being presented right now, given the timeframe the books being October and what Bruce is mentioning when things drop off. It sounds not bad. There's other things to come. They have to anticipate those two.
We have a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
To use all, like if for prop, like if prop one passes, can we stagger some of those for priority if we had to reallocate, or that all folds into that 8 million as well?
So
This is just the fields, okay.
yeah, so what goes into the incidental cost allowance is all of your outside work, fields, parking lots, those kinds of things. And then the design, legal, construction management costs related to your inside work. All of those things go into what's called the incidental.
Yeah, that's Charlie, I think raises a very good point that Bruce was able to give us an off the cuff estimate, but I think it's probably worth Bruce rolling up his sleeves a little bit. We're not voting on this tonight. We'll vote on this on the 29th. We're going to move that board meeting from 8 a.m. until late afternoon or evening. Just as an FYI for everybody, it was, I think,
I'm not here. She's not here. So what time is that gonna be? 8 AM? Oh, I could call in.
well, it's not going to be 8 a.m. It's going to be in the afternoon or early evening. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. So as guidance for what Janet and the team should work on for us to vote on the 29th and get, propositions drafted and all that would be structurally Proposition 1, as it is here, Proposition 2, which is listed as 2A, which includes the artificial turf field, and Proposition 3, which is what is 2B there, which would really be 5 million. It would just be 2 grass fields. And as part of that, Bruce needs to roll up his sleeves a little bit and give us a sense of how much, we could do now if all of it passed. And if all of it passed, does a full field have to wait until 2028? Is there risk of other stuff coming? I don't think there's other outside stuff coming in capital project that would fall into the incidentals, but is there other incidental stuff that could come up?
Only to the, as Charlie mentioned, only to the extent that you had other necessary work inside the building at the high school or middle school, you would need incidental cost allowance there for the design and legal costs and construction management costs.
Right. Right. Yeah, we wouldn't, and that's the thing. If once it becomes a local cost, I don't think we would take that on. We wouldn't take it on. We just, we couldn't afford to suddenly then pick up 2/3 of it. So, um, Bruce, any guidance or thoughts on this? Or do you need to do more work?
So I think there is work. I am actually handing off to Aaron because I'm away starting as soon as this meeting's over.
How convenient.
But I believe we can still hit what you're asking for the 29th. You may have some of that analysis coming together the week of as opposed to the Friday before, but I think we hear where the board is inclined to go. And I think that the team will be able to give you an idea what that looks like on the 29th.
Any other comments from board members? What are concerns about this concept?
Go on vacation. The last thing I just want to mention, and I think it is kind of important, if in doing this and making these changes and taking out Proposition 3, I think we just need to keep in the back of our mind that we are going to be facing some heavy costs coming from the town as far as use for the rec park. Without bringing in the softball, baseball option, I just think that that's something we should keep in mind. That we're still going to have to come up with, a contract for use and.
Well, we currently pay them $60,000 a year, and I think Bruce said if we.
Contract is up this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just,
keep that goes with
good.
the whole theme of like keeping all fields in. I agree. I just want to also acknowledge, Charlie, the points you raise are very sound and we're all pensive. But I also want to just raise that, Janet, like right now on the last capital project, like how ahead are we of our budget? Like we are very, very prudent when it comes to the spend, remembering that some of these numbers include contingency and a buffer. But right now, I believe on the last capital project, we are.
I don't know, Lou, where are we at?
Where are we at, Lou?
3.
Under. Okay, so we have a good track record. So that gives me some confidence as well in terms of like our planning and our spending and your hard work. So keep it up.
All right. Austin or Jen, any other concerns, questions, anything? I think we're getting close to wrapping up, but I wanted to give everyone a chance to offer any last thoughts. Okay. All right. So I think that. I was trying to get you some, collective guidance. And with that, I will, turn it back to you.
So I read over the themes for the board meetings, and I'll bring that back to all of you on August 29th and make suggestions for what the presentations are at each month. We do have to talk about the next meeting. Russ had made mention, it's August 29th. So can we propose to perhaps switch that to 5 o'clock? And then we also need to do the building walkthrough committee. So I think by the 29th, I think we would be able to walk through all the buildings. There's a lot of work going on, so I think the board should see everything. So is that possible? Thank you, Kelly. Is that good?
Kate has to check. I was denigrating NC State.
So I was thinking maybe we can meet 4 o'clock here, walk through Mill Road. Scott, you think that's good? We'll walk through here first. then have the meeting at 5, and then head over to Lambs and the high school and do a walkthrough there. Does that work for everyone? Charlie or Austin, is that okay?
Yes.
We, we'll finalize the time later. I think we need to have people to circle up their schedules. We need to make sure we can have all 7 board members available to vote, and there's one that's, check her schedule, so.
Okay, because Scott's got to make sure all the custodians are there as well, and
All
so
right.
those given times.
We'll try and get that resolved in the next 24 hours. Okay, all right. What do we have left? Superintendent update?
That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do
Okay,
right
I'm
now.
sorry, I'll shut up now.
I did not say that. I would never say that. The capital, Bruce is going to give us a quick update, or Scott, or actually we have everybody here about all the work that's going on right now and where we are with everything.
So at a high level, I would say you've seen a lot of work going on in this building. It seems to be nearing an end. It will not be fully finished at the end of the summer. There will be some work that will continue into the fall, but school will start, the buses will come, and it'll all be neat and clean and nice. I would classify the high school in roughly the same place. That's been a pretty complex project. With the HVAC work going along as well as the windows. It will not be 100% done when school starts. If you walk through there, it produces a little bit of anxiety, but that will be clean and neat and ready to go on day 1 as well. And some of the work there will run down into the fall. The news is really good at the middle school, where you may remember we had some water infiltration onto the gym floor. We actually made out very nicely there. We've got a beautiful new gym floor at the middle school, beautifully painted. I could not find the seam between where the new work and the old work broke. It's a very nice job. We made out very nicely. If you want more detail, we have all of our professionals here, but that would be my assessment of where we are with the capital project.
Get the windows over here. Is it like a supply issue, or they just take a tremendous amount of time?
Lou, you want to? This is actually pretty good how it's going.
No, I know. I'm not being critical. I just, it's taking a while. I like
Yeah, so no, that's a great question. It's both. It's supply and the amount of work that has to be done. When you look at the building, it's just trying to hit the right spots and trying to be in the right place for when school opens back up. So we were trying to be strategic. We probably changed the phasing plan here 3 times based on how we were getting materials in. And I believe we came to a good place. So once we open school, I think we're going to be, I think everyone's going to be really happy. But like Bruce said, we're going to be working, continuing to work second shift to finalize some of those locations that we couldn't get.
It looks beautiful. It looks like a whole new building. It's very modern.
Yeah, no, the colors are great. Everything looks really, really sharp. Yeah.
If whoever picked them out, Janet, great job.
Well, Dr. Boyd and I Scott had to paint 2 panels, and then there was a slightly a vote that students were brought out, but red won, not the colonial red.
Not the colonial red. Any other questions?
I said, if I don't put red, everyone's going to think something's wrong. All right, thanks. Just new teacher orientation, if the board's interested in attending, would be August 26th and 27th in this building. So there's a lot of things going on those both days. If you want to stop by, I will be on the 26th around 9, welcoming them. So if you also like to join me, that would be great. And September 3rd, we have our welcome back. We have a student that is very excited that she got chosen to speak. So she'll be speaking. Russ Crafton will be speaking.
Okay.
And then I will be speaking.
I'll keep it short.
I knew you were speaking. I just want to also quickly talk about our administrative retreat. We had a speaker come from the Successful Practice Networks, and we talked a lot about the shifting landscape of employment and education and how we have to focus on what's presently in front of us, but similar have to prepare for the future that our students are going to be working towards. And we came up with a lot of themes. We talked about in the next 5 years, what does a plausible future look like for our students? And we talked a lot about how knowledge is not just about acquiring anymore. It's some way you have to navigate and participate in. We talked about how young people have a high value on real world experiences and practical skills. So the influence of what our classrooms would look like for that. We talked about the importance of creativity, holistic thinking, and meta skills. So thinking about thinking type skills, not only a focus on content, but critical thinking and any material that's put in front of you, how you assess that and work with that. This came up as something definitely in the next 5 years. We have to learn to work with people who have different backgrounds and views, because that's going to be, it's always been, but I think even more than ever, it's a very critical skill for our students. And we also talked about the fact that our jobs, all jobs are evolving so quickly. So whatever our students are headed in and learning for college, it's going to change. So our students need to be able to be flexible and adaptable to the evolving nature of any job that they come in contact with. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that on the first day of school and what does that look like for our classrooms and our teaching practices and, you know, how we lead people through this. We're also working on, I think we talked a lot about the mental health issues that we're facing, as well as the influence of artificial intelligence, the use of cell phones, things of that nature. And we are going to be doing a book talk with the community with the book called The Anxious Generation. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but we're going to partner with the local library and the PTA, and the foundation is going to also help us work with the community. And it's kind of in its infancy right now, but we're hopeful to get a huge community read. The book focuses on two really important things: the influence, obviously, of cell phones and social media, especially on really, really young kids, 0 to 5, and how it's just really changing the way that they learn and the way that they control basically their whole nervous system and executive functioning. In addition, they talk a lot about the overparenting and how people are nervous and very anxious for the world around us and how that's impacting students' play. Students are not going to each other's houses as much as they used to. They're not playing outside as much as they used to. So having that conversation as a school, but also as a community about how we can address some of these issues. And in the book, we're hoping to get the speaker, someone that has done the research. What are some actual steps in a community and in a school that you can take to rectify some of these? So in the book, it gives you actionable steps. So we're hopeful that that will start a conversation, make people feel a little bit more comfortable talking about what's happening in their own homes or what's happening with perhaps just in general, everybody's feeling a heightened state of being anxious. So we're hoping that that will be a gateway to have easier conversations around it. So of course, the board will be invited to those events as well. And I just want to emphasize that one thing that Bruce said earlier about the taxes. Bruce had mentioned earlier that I feel like this is a very big deal because our taxes have been raised a lot over the years, and that tax-based growth factor is huge for our school district. And that means that there's building happening around too. So we certainly don't want to put the burden on taxpayers for education, but one way around it is that there's more houses to offset some of those costs. So we appreciate that, and also all the hard work that Bruce does daily for creating the budget as well. So any questions?
Thank you. We have one last item. We do need to finalize our committees. I think there was some preliminary thoughts. But we have policy, facilities, and the new committee that we're going to create is community engagement. Charlie, I think you have been on policy and agreed to continue to do that. Was that a yes? Okay, yeah, all right. All right. And then Jen had been on facilities, but Jen, we talked about, Jen, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, yeah, your face is froze, but we had talked about you kind of shifting from policy to being on community engagement. Yeah, and we'll figure out kind of the timing. I'm a floater, so I've never really actually been to policy, so I could benefit from policy. I can sit in on any other committee if there's 3 people on community engagement. I could sit in, but I can't participate. On facilities, Kate, you had raised your hand wanting to do that, and Aaron, you had raised your hand wanting to do that. Okay, so facilities will be Kate and Aaron. Policy will be Charlie and Jen partially, and then I may fill in and help Charlie on that. And then the last one was community engagement, which will be a new community committee. And Kelly, you had volunteered, and I think we all thought you would be excellent at that. Austin, I think you were interested in community engagement, and I think you'd bring access to a younger group of parents. And then Jen, you'd also be on community engagement as you shift off of policy. That makes sense to everybody? All right. Alana, you have that? All right. I'll clarify it with you later. Yeah. All right. Anyone else have any other comments? I know it's late in the wonderful places you're on vacation, so if there's no other comments, I'll call for this adjournment.
Adjourn.
I need a motion. Yeah.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Thank you.